And tonight we take an in-depth look at the explosive new book that has all of Washington talking, from allegations that the Obama inner circle attempted to pay off the Reverend Jeremiah Wright to reports about the widespread corruption that still exists within the administration. We will be reviewing a mountain of new evidence that shows just how unprepared Barack Obama was to hold the office of the presidency. Plus, in a Hannity exclusive, you will hear for the very first time audio of a bombshell interview that took place in 2011 between the Reverend Jeremiah Wright and the author of this book, Ed Klein. Joining me now in studio, the man behind this explosive new book. It's called The Amateur, Barack Obama in the White House. Ed Klein, how are you?
Good to see you again.
Welcome back.
Good to see you, too.
You know, you have this habit of writing books that just get no attention. That's not controversial.
I try my best.
I'm not going to get to this now, but we're going to play some of the audio. You actually got a 3-hour interview that you taped with Reverend Wright. How did you get that?
Through mutual friends who I tried over months to convince him to see me. Finally, he did see me in his office at the, get this, Kwame Nkrumah Academy, which is a high school named after the late Marxist dictator of Ghana. He has this little office there because he's now retired, the Reverend Wright. And he met me in his suit. He looked very, very proper. And we had this 3-hour interview, and I had my tape recorder on the desk, and the whole thing is on tape.
I've listened to the whole thing. Interesting. My name came up a few times.
Yes, it did.
It did. All right, we'll get to that later. Let's start with, I thought this was one of the more interesting parts of the book, and that is that, first of all, let's talk about the title, Amateur.
Right.
Because I've said often that Barack Obama's in over his head.
He is.
Explain where the title came from.
The title came from Bill Clinton. He had a meeting with Hillary.
In Chappaqua.
In Chappaqua back in August 2011. And the room was full of their friends because, you know, Bill likes to hold court. And he likes to use his ideas and bounce them off of people. And I interviewed several of the people who were in that room. And he was trying to convince Hillary to run against Obama in the Democratic primaries in 2012.
And he did some polling.
And he did secret polling. And he showed her that she was doing well with African Americans and with women and with Jews. And she said, wait a second, she said.
What about loyalty?
What about loyalty? And he said, there's no such word in politics.
Yeah. Now, you're going to come under fire for different aspects of the book, but your sources are, but they're not named, the people that were in the room.
Yes.
And you had how many sources confirmed that were actually there? That were. You see, I wondered about this because I don't think Bill Clinton ever got over when he said that he thought or felt that Barack Obama played the race card on him. Is that true? Is that where this comes from?
You could not be more right. He is still burning from that.
Seething.
Seething, that's right. And he wants desperately to get back in the White House.
Yeah. You know, it's
and he has no, excuse me, but he has no respect for this president. And he says so.
And the funny thing is, he doesn't want Hillary to wait to 2016 because it's about him. And he feels he'll be too old.
He'll be too old, and his health is not that good. He's worried that, you know, will I make it? And she's saying, you got to wait till 2016. I mean, there's no question. They're planning right now. He's gone so far, by the way, to plan for 2016 that he's already talking to people about renting an airplane for her campaign.
So he's that invested
yes.
in this coming election here. All right, as you talk about this, you also go into some of the life and the background of Michelle Obama and Barack Obama. What did you glean out of this that you didn't know about them going in? What would you like the American people to know about him?
About Obama?
Yeah.
I'd like them to know that this guy is temperamentally unsuited for the job of president. You know, you look at Lyndon Johnson. He couldn't give a good speech. He couldn't read from the teleprompter, but he understood how to work the levers of power in Washington. Barack Obama is a wonderful speechifier, lovely guy in front of the teleprompter, looks good, great tie. He has no idea how to work Washington. And he doesn't really have any interest in it either. I have people tell me that they attend meetings on foreign affairs with him, and he gets a phone from a head of state, and he complains in front of everybody, you know what? I've got to deal with these congressmen from Palookaville to get my bills passed. Of course he does. But he doesn't like to do it.
Yeah, maybe that's why there's this disconnect. Bill Clinton, on the other hand, would be up into all hours of the night talking to anybody who talked to him.
Or how about Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill?
Is it after 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
Interesting point. All right. let's talk about meeting Jeremiah Wright.
Yes.
This is fascinating. We'll play some of the tapes. Tell us about the meeting.
It wasn't what I expected, to tell you the truth, because the guy who I met did not look like the guy on the videotapes with the dashiki and, you know, red face and screaming. He was very quiet, very polite.
Very measured.
Very measured. And talked about his academic credentials, very proud of the fact that he had a PhD, and answered all my questions. And it was just like you and me talking. There was no sense that this guy could go off the deep end.
Yeah, I felt some intensity. Well, maybe when he was talking about me, but also defending GD America. He felt that he had been wronged.
That's right.
But the overwhelming sense that I got, Ed, out of the conversation, listening to the 3 hours, was that as I listened to him, he was throwing Barack Obama down the stairs. Yes. And let's start with, he tells a story, and I'm going to play this first tape here, where basically he is offered money through a third party to basically shut up and not speak until the November 2008 election.
And every time I look at that box with all those things in it,
what's in the box?
An email offering me money not to preach at all between the explosion of the media the first week in March and November election.
Email from whom?
From one of his friends.
Whitaker.
Huh?
Whitaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah.
Interesting. You didn't mention the name Whitaker in the book, but this was a bona fide offer.
Yes.
With proof, evidence. Did he show it to you?
No, he did not.
But he says he has an email.
He says he has a box, a cardboard box, in which he's put all kinds of things, including this email from Eric Whitaker, who is one of Barack Obama's closest friends, basketball player. They go on vacations together. During the campaign, Eric Whitaker traveled on the airplane, the campaign plane with him. Their families are very, very close. Eric Whitaker is the guy that Barack Obama turns to when he has something personal that he wants to have handled outside of the normal channels.
Why does this sound to me a lot like why John Edwards is on trial right now? But think about this.
Right.
In other words, is it an offer for an in-kind donation to buy the silence of somebody that could hurt his campaign? Even Reverend Wright said at one point when they canceled him for the invocation of the announcement in Springfield, when he announced he was going to run for president, he was canceled. He talked to you about that.
Yes, he did. He was very upset about it. His family was even more upset about it. And he had to settle for giving a little prayer beneath the platform where he was not seen
with
to
the
family. But he was not rolled out to give the invocation in front on the platform in front of everybody in Springfield, Illinois.
So what is that? What is he saying to you here? And why is he saying it now? Because he obviously knows anything he says is going to have a big impact on the campaign. Why is he suggesting that they tried to buy his silence in 2008?
Because he feels that he's been turned by the Obama campaign into a pariah, and that everywhere he goes, people who recognize him come up to him and say, "How could you do that? How could you say those things about on the platform in your church?" And I think he wants to set the record straight.
But it's also setting the record straight about Obama.
Yes.
And this next tape that we're going to air is very revealing, because when nobody knew it, they had a private meeting during the 2008 campaign, and President Obama appealed to him himself, begged him pretty much.
And you know, this took place.
Yeah, well, we'll hold that because we're going to play this part when we get back.
Right.
Pretty much begged him, and they had an exchange at the end of that meeting, which I think is very profound. And I'll let you explain it from your new book when we come back. We have much more. And welcome back to Hannity as we continue to take an in-depth look at the book that everybody's talking about. It's called The Amateur, Barack Obama in the White House, and the author of that book, Ed Klein, is still with us. All right, so this is interesting. So they have a meeting, President Obama and Reverend Wright, and they hide it in the middle of the campaign. Now, Reverend Wright has already been offered money through an intermediary.
That's right.
to stop talking.
Yes.
Okay. Now the president makes that appeal himself. You spoke to Reverend...
The campaigner. He's not president yet.
Okay, the campaigner. He's not president yet. So they have a secret meeting, and as part of that, President Obama is asking Reverend Wright, hey, can you please stop? And this is Ed Klein's interview with Reverend Wright about it.
When he came to talk to me, he said the same thing Eric Whitaker's email said. I really wish he would not do any more public speaking until November.
Did he offer you any money?
No, he did not.
He did not.
No, Eric. In fact, Eric did not send that to me. He sent it to one of the members who sent it to me.
Eric did not send it directly to you?
No. He sent it to one of the guys close to me, saying, can you make this offer to Rev? Well, he signed it, and the IP shows exactly where it comes from, so that's in the box.
All right, so this is after the president. He's meeting with Reverend Wright after he gave a speech at Philly.
Yes.
On race.
And basically threw the Reverend Wright under the bus.
Yeah.
And then he calls the Reverend Wright, as the Reverend Wright told me, said, I'd like to have a private meeting with you at a secure place. Reverend Wright said, what do you mean a secure place? You've come to my home 1,000 times. Why don't you just come here? So he did go there. And I have the Secret Service logs showing that he did show up that day at the Reverend Wright's parsonage.
And it was picked up only in a small way by the media, but you would think after the big Philly speech. Remember, this is the president that had said earlier that he is like family to me.
That's right.
I could no longer disown Reverend Wright than I could the black community, so I could see why the Reverend's resentful. The end of this meeting, you ask Reverend Wright about this, and Obama says to him something profound. You can tell it, and then I'll play it.
He says, the trouble with you, Reverend, is that you have to tell the truth. And the Reverend Wright says to him, that's not a bad trouble to have, Mr. Obama.
Wow. So in other words, he's basically saying, he's saying, I don't have to tell the truth.
That's right.
All right, listen to this.
Was he confident about being elected?
At that point, yes, and he saw me as yes. He was confident, he was very hopeful, but he saw me as a deterrent, which is why he didn't want me to say anything.
How did you two leave each other that day in your living room?
He said, I'm sorry you don't see it that way. I said, oh, the most profound thing he said to me that day, he said, you know what your problem is? I said, what's my problem? You have to tell the truth. I said, that's a good problem to have.
So basically, Reverend Wright is telling the world right now, knowing that this is an important point in the election,
Yes.
that Barack Obama is a liar.
That's right.
Am I reading that right?
You are. He said to me numerous times during this interview, there was a Barack Obama that I knew before he ran for president. Not a bad guy, wanted to stay home with his kids, tuck them in at night. And then something happened when he ran for president. He completely changed.
He said he became a politician.
That's right.
And he went into great detail in that. All right, there was an interesting connection that you brought up between Whitaker and Michelle Obama.
Yes.
This is because she got a huge pay raise. She worked for this hospital. That became controversial because they had this whole policy put in place where people would be sort of encouraged to go to other hospitals to save money.
To save money for the University of Chicago Hospital Medical Center. They would shunt poor patients under when Michelle Obama was head of the Urban Health Initiative. They shunted these poor patients to local hospitals so they had more room for rich patients who could pay more. And that job that she had, which was paid, I think, $315,000 a year.
Which was a significant raise.
Oh, like triple what she was making before. This was after he became a United States Senator.
Yeah.
That same job is now held by, guess who? Eric Whitaker.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this is crony Chicago capitalism.